Part 200, Prof D here, and we are ready to move on to Chapter 5 in our textbook, Exploring Art. So we are beginning a new unit in the course. The first 4 chapters, we look at the language of art, the formal elements of art. We learn about the different methodologies, the ways of understanding art, and we learn about the medium, or what art can be made out of. Now we're moving into this section where we talk about why people make art. Why do we make art? Why have humans made art all of these years? And we start off with some sort of basic survival needs, right? What do we as humans need to survive? We need food, we need shelter, we need to reproduce. So in this early section, we're going to be looking at art objects and architecture that relate to these really basic human needs of survival. As we move forward, we're going to talk about the things that humans do as societies develop, right? So as political systems are put into place, how do artists express power? How do those in power rely on artists to help promote a cause or to do something like create propaganda? And then later, how do people rely on artists to help express discontent, to express social protest? And then later in the semester, we look at art in our contemporary times and how we can understand the self and how we can express ideas about identity through art. So anyway, this week we are starting with Chapter 5, Food and Shelter, and we will begin by looking at the cave paintings, right? The cave paintings of Lascaux, France, of Altamira, Spain. There are lots and lots of images on Moodle for you in the PowerPoint of the cave paintings, and we will talk about how these images perhaps function as a way to communicate information about food sources. Then we will look at some other examples of art related to food. We'll look at objects that people have used to consume food in rituals. So we might look at something like a tea ceremony in Japan and the items used in that ritual. Or we could think about the indigenous people of the Americas who would drink a kind of hot chocolate, a spicy hot chocolate drink at wedding ceremonies. Then we will look at Dutch Baroque art. Namely, we will look at still life paintings, and we will understand that these paintings of these really elaborate table settings with food and imported citrus fruits and musical instruments were a way for people to express a lot of ideas about life in the north of Europe in the 17th century. For example, we have to remember that at this time, we have a new country. The Netherlands is a new country without an aristocracy, which means that they don't have kings and queens to paint. We have a new sort of middle-class society, and this middle-class society wants to purchase things like still life paintings, landscape paintings. So we have the development of a new art form. We also, with Protestantism, we don't see religious art, right? We don't see all of that sort of Baroque art that we see in the Catholic areas, paintings of religious experiences. So instead, we have images like this table of desserts that remind us about our own mortality, that remind us that we, like fruit that will rot, will eventually die, and therefore we should lead moral lives according to Protestantism. Then we will look at some examples of contemporary art. We will look at Judy Chicago's Dinner Party, which is a really interesting feminist artwork that is concerned with reclaiming important women from history and reinserting them into the sort of master narratives of history. And then we will look at architecture and shelter, and we will look at how people have lived, how people live. We will look at private residences. We will look at communal living, such as, cave dwellings in Native America. And we will look at private residences, for example, the villas of Pompeii. And we will look at some examples of modern architecture. We'll look at the development of the skyscraper in the Western world, for example. So this chapter, again, gives you an overview of some of the key artworks historically from all over the world that relate to these really basic human survival needs, right? Of acquiring and ensuring food and shelter. Keep up the good work, and if you have any questions, you can always email me or post your question on the forum. And as usual, make sure you're posting to Instagram and you're responding to the forum every week. Have a great week.